A very warm good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, viewers. I'm Matthias Aufiku, news editor of the Namibian Sun newspaper. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Evening Review Show. Well, Finance Minister Ipumbu Shiimi tabled his midterm review budget yesterday in Parliament. Well, quite interesting revelations from the budget, and I'm sure many of you, like us here this side, we're very surprised about some of the contents of that budget. Well, tonight we have Mr. Rodney Hoaeb, an economic researcher, just to dissect what he made of the budget, what we can expect, and whether the contents of the budget really addresses the economic needs of our country where we find ourselves. Mr. Hoaeb, welcome and good evening.
Good day, Mr. Aufiku, and it's a pleasure to be in your studio. And it's a great afternoon and a very interesting time in the economic paradigm that we find ourselves.
Yeah, no, it's good to have you here, Rodney. Let's start off. Give us your initial reaction as Minister Ipumbu was delivering his speech in Parliament yesterday.
Thank you very much.
What did you make of it?
I've seen different perspectives and different views from the economic sphere, and I've seen colleagues also commenting about the budget. We want to make this budget very open to everybody, and I'm happy that we have created a platform so that people can know what is happening out there and have familiarized themselves with the developments of the country. Many people in the beginning of the year had panics about where the economy is going, how we shape ourselves amidst global challenges and interest rate hikes, inflationary behavior from the market, and there's a lot of also negative perception out there. But I can first start with two sets of remedy to the situation that I can say that we are on a positive trajectory growth-wise. We can see that there's a substantial difference in the collections of budget. There's probably a 8 or 10% or say 10 billion difference of collections compared to the previous years, which was around 64 billion in collections, and then this year it's 74 billion. Should I say in expenditure? Let me first focus on expenditure. So use that 10 billion gap. We collected most of the revenue from taxes, which is not a very good sign in natural fact. Our collection of 64 billion from only taxable revenues, which is 28% of indirect tax, 28% of import taxes or customs collections, and about 25 or 26% of collections from VAT and consumption markets, or should I say indirect taxes. So it's income, indirect taxes, and imports, the three I's. The collections from the corporate level is only 15%. What does that paint about Namibia's taxable collection or position? It basically means that most of the taxes are based on the consumer's choice. Most of the taxes are based on what we import. Most of the taxes based on what we accumulate as a society, as a country. The SACU collections have increased to 14 billion. It was 14.7 the previous year, the entire year. It's quite a very phenomenal difference compared to the previous year. SACU receipts is what we as a collective SACU country or a member state collects from South Africa, Botswana, Lesotho, and Eswatini. To be reliant on that SACU receipt is also not a good position economically. Why I'm reflecting on the three I's of the collection of taxes is that one-sided economic policy, having revenues only stemming primarily from taxes and reliance on taxes. I understand that the biggest contribution to the budget collection was NAMRA because of their outstanding work in terms of collections. It should be something that should be looked at. I believe that some of the colleagues were saying that, yes, there can be more be done, but yes, I do jump on that bandwagon. But in the first year of opening, that 5 billion plus collections makes quite a substantial difference compared to where we were or where we would have been. Namibia's imports have grown significantly. Let me come back to imports. Have grown significantly. It is one of the highest of what we've experienced amongst a couple of years. Do we have a mercantile and a consumerized economy? Yes, we do. Is that a bad position? Yes, it is. Not very positive. Meaning that we need more industrial output. We need more manufacturing output. We need more employment creating sectors. We need more construction growth. We need more growth in agricultural services. What will this help? It will create a balance of locally produced exports that we can export to other countries. But if we import more because we collect more, what happens when we step up to the African Continental Free Trade Agreements and other free trade regimes? It means that customs collections will become less. It means that we are not taxing our exports enough. it means that we are also focusing on collecting revenues from what we call currency outflows. Currency outflows, if we import something, it is taxed or priced in a US dollar, not taxed, but priced in US dollars. It means that we need more US dollars to buy the imports that we get. When we accumulate more imports, buy more US dollars, it means our currency is weakening. And if we continue this trajectory, let's look at benchmarking that position economically. South Africa has quite a substantial number of imports, but then also they have situations where exports oversee the imports, where they have a trade or a positive, where they have a trade surplus. Does Namibia have a trade surplus? I think one occurred maybe, I think in the year around 2019. I believe you guys have published an article where we were happy that our export surplus was because we had major exports to China, and it was quite a good position. But currently, we are going the opposite direction.
So what do you think happened between then and now?
Between then and now, it means that I believe that a closure in terms of industry, and I've mentioned that before, that deindustrialization was always knocking at our doors. Yes, I know we did some policy reforms. NIDA came to our position, and I believe we should ask two institutions that question, NIDA and, for example, the Namibian Investment Promotion Board. How can we boost more aggressive exports? How can we be aggressive in terms of producing? Yes, I do understand that we are a hub. We want to become a logistics hub, and we have a port. But the imports that are recorded directly, that are coming on the revenue pool, it is imports that are targeted for the SACU region and not for the other regions. Yes, otherwise it will be termed as transit goods. So we need more to industrialize more. We need, and there was a focus. There should be a focus more on the mining sector. We did not collect much revenue from the mining sector. There was layoffs. There was lower production. There was not a right target on the right commodities. The commodities that are facing big challenges is that commodities that are, if our currency becomes weaker, then it means that we export more commodities at a very cheap rate. We are not making enough revenue, apart from only currency, if we collect more US dollars for these goods. But in natural fact, going backwards, is that we need probably to look at the pricing stability of our raw materials that we export. We need to look at value addition locally. Yes, if we do local value addition, we will increase the number of industries. We will employ more people, and then we will find ourselves more in a stable position. Coming back more also about indirect taxes and VATs, why do Namibians consume at a level where VAT alone is 26%? I know there are avenues where double taxation takes place. What is one of the trade-offs of taxed income for government is that people need to make more claims. That's one thing. People are reliant on luxury goods because VAT is about luxury goods. It's about a value-added service. Simple example I can pull. If someone goes to the shop and then you buy bread, for example, bread is exempted. You buy rice, for example, there's a 15% tax on that. At the level of import and at the declaration of that entity, government receives that 15% from tax. What happens if mass consumers and corporates withdraw that VAT in a way of reimbursements? Because when they perform poorly, then they should be liable to get back the VAT because there's no income or there's lower income. That means that there is too much volatility in that sense. What can be a positive way that Namibians can spend? There's a significant number of expenditure on food. There's a high expenditure on electricity. There's a high expenditure on transport, on petroleum fuel, which is about 10 billion to 15% of annual expenditure in Namibia. Namibians, and that tells you exactly that we are not having the right priorities as an economy. People should have more asset-based expenditure. Asset-based expenditure like houses, land, investments, retirement funds. These are boosting or empowering people to spend on something where they can get tax rebates.
But from a policy perspective and the real situation on the ground, which you're also aware of, would you say our people are at that level to spend on those things? I mean, you've mentioned earlier on the issue of job losses and so on. So how do we then balance the two there?
The economy has to create a substitution effect. Take more money from avenues where people are spending recklessly and put it in avenues where people can have more savings and have a more wealth position. The economy reflects what is happening on the ground. The economy reflects that Namibia's revenue collection, primary and main, Namibia's employment capacity, if we look at the taxes, the 28% of collection, more than 100,000 people are employed by government. We have 33% level of employment, which means that our employment figures are going in the range of 400,000 people that are working in the country. We are taxing those people. That is where the 28% comes from. Yeah. People consume. Our import bill stands at 140, 130 billion. We are taxing 15% or some of that revenue. Yeah. We need more flexible avenues, and policy is the way that unlock and look at those figures, that reforms.
Well, people on the ground also say, well and good. You economists would say that the economy is growing, or we're on a positive trajectory, whatever economic terms you would use. But the situation on the ground reflects something different.
There are sectors that really do well. We have seen that significant output in the diamond sector. We have seen that the production has increased. The results show that they outdid or outperformed their previous production on a semi-annual basis. There's a growth in some sectors. For example, say there's optimism in some of the commodities, the lithium, uranium. There's going back towards manufacturing more, I believe also copper outputs. Gold took a little bit of a dip, I believe, because of the labor instability and so on. There are different spheres to look at it. People are unemployed. People are not getting adequate. Businesses are not getting enough stimulus from the economy. We have neglected our SME sectors. We have neglected for them to access capital to sustain themselves. We knew that after COVID, the effect of what happens after that, then you have the Ukraine-Russian war. The Ukraine-Russian war is almost the same damage as the COVID pandemic. What do we need to do? We need to go back on those remedial actions. We just don't need a policy. I understand that the Ministry of Finance recently had a situation where they wanted an economic intervention plan post-COVID. Have we seen it manifest? Have we seen it being implemented? Have we seen the stakeholders being called together? No, not really. And I think the actual stakeholders are the business on the ground. They are left out of the conversations on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. When we go back and government has increased their revenue, the expenditure, we are now having $10 billion, which is a deficit on the budget, that government will increase its expenditure. Yes, that is the same that the SMEs want to see. Government spend more, but at whose expense? Yeah. Not at the expense of SMEs. SMEs also need income, steady income for them to survive.
Hold your thoughts there, Rodney. We will go for a short break, and we'll be back to continue this. To our viewers, we wait for a quick commercial break, and we'll be back to continue this insightful economic conversation. Stay tuned.
My.NA Property Show provides viewers with the best in-class content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest property-related products and services. If you would like to feature your brand or your campaign on this platform, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na. My.NA Properties, more than just a roof over your head.
3, 2, 1.
We Talk brings you community news that lies at the heart of Windhoek residents. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact We Talk at synergy.com.na. You live, we talk.
Well, let me welcome our viewers back from that short commercial break. Mr. Hoaeb, let's continue this conversation. Minister Ipumbu announced several planned increases, such as the old age pension, the OVC grants, and so on. What did you make of that? What did you make of that, considering as to where we are as a country from an economic perspective? Can we afford that?
I believe they have noticed that GDP growth is impending. I believe that we will not go into recession. That's for sure, and we witness a certain amount of GDP growth. And I believe that they use that. Today we have got what we call geopolitical decisions, and we are at the verge of campaigns, and political influence that is playing off a major role. Governments want recognition, the ruling party wants recognition. There has been a lot of criticism in terms of looking at the plight of the poor. We look at the health sector facing tremendous setbacks. And I believe that there should have been a discussion first about what areas to address in terms of the social stability. Going for the grants is not very imminent. It's not very sharp decision. We need to revive the confidence that people have in our economic sectors, agricultural production, for example. If we have, as you have lightly touched, the Neckartal Dam project that is not even cultivated, not a single plant was put into the ground. So one thing that we have to understand about economic perspective is that what you plant is what you sow, or what you sow is what you reap. Without sowing much, we are reaping into the air, into thin air. Looking at that being said, is that the food bank initiative, the raising the funds for the OVCs, and then also for the old age pension increases, is that people want to be more in a stable economic environment than just getting money. That is very important. When you are in a healthy environment, you don't need too much access to money because the environment takes care of you. The employment, your kids, if your kids have employment in these agricultural projects, your children who is having jobs will come and be the supporting role. So there should have been a little bit more diversity and discussion about social empowerment initiative before just increasing the amounts. It means that we want to take a shortcut, literally. I would touch more on that to say that Namibia has a deficit in terms of local produce. That's why we were airing and exhausting the topic of too much exports, becoming a net importer of food. What we will have is a situation where our silos, which we have about 18 under the Agribest which is closed and now overlooked by AMTA, is that silos will stand empty, waiting for import goods to fill them. And that situation is what we can see manifest. And government will continue to increase imports or expenditure on imports of food just to meet the gap. And that is not a positive sign. So I believe more dialogue was needed.
Well, in terms of the debt levels, what did you make of the minister's plan to contain this debt?
I was always skeptical or cautious about government exceeding debt above 100 billion mark. You know, accumulating debt of about 60% of GDP. It does not paint a very good picture. The domestic debt already is at 33 billion. So adding a debt of 440 billion for an economy that is not performing very strongly, whenever we accumulate debt, it means that our GDP growth figure always comes down. It means that we become recessionary in our behavior. That is on the high level. But for an average person, it creates fear. It creates panic. When debt is high, so for example, if your kids in the household knows that the parents are debt reliant, the bank can come anytime and repossess, they realize that, and servicing debt has become more expensive. We're talking about the current US dollar is 18 rand to $1. It means that we need more money to service the debt that we are accumulating. But I see government has diverted more towards taking local debt. But what happens behind the scenes is that if it was correctly reported, the government looking for amnesty with local debt collection, they want the people that are buying the local treasury bills to give them a period or a extended period for repayment of the debt, and that won't fly well because it means that we are becoming unstable in our debt servicing. We can be easily downgraded to a very poor standard. How can we remedy that situation? Again, we have the 3 I's: indirect taxes, import taxes, and also imports taxes. What we can then do is bring new eyes, innovation, more investment in local businesses, identifying skills. If we take that money that is given to government to cover salaries, push them more into business sectors where we can realize growth. So that is the thing about debt, and debt has a very bad outcome. We see the green hydrogen needs, it's pushing a lot of media attention at the moment. What is happening is that whoever gives you money dictates to you. And we are silently moving in a trajectory where we don't have a liberal economic position. Because IMF, I believe it happened in South Africa where before the minister went on air to air the budget, he had to make emergency changes. You know, ESCOM came under emergency support of the IMF. And when that happens, those institutions don't just come with free money. They come with policy changes. They come with demands. They come and they dictate to you what you should do in the economy. I believe that we should put a moratorium immediately on debt. We should, if the government doesn't want to do it, the business sector should come and say, until this point, either cut your expenditure, or do not accumulate any more debt, because we want to see growth of GDP above 5%, 7%, 12%, if possible, double figure.
Well, one of the biggest challenges we still face as far as our fiscal is concerned is the non-performing SOEs. Many of them still very over-reliant on bailouts and so on. I mean, you have several of them who are not functioning, and their monthly bills are catered for by Treasury. How do we tackle that?
Most of the SOEs are in a moribund state where I can suggest to them that innovative approaches would have always helped. And sometimes SOEs and being on boards of SOEs are spelled like a ticket out of poverty for our compatriots. We have seen what we call cadre deployment in terms of SMEs, and people that are not having relevant skills are always deployed to the SMEs. And that has always been the deficit in skills from the executive level. Why am I adding that is because most SMEs needed...
SOEs, you mean?
SOEs, needed critical intervention of innovative, jumping innovative bandwagon. For example, we have SOEs that will be centered around the sale of, beef, for example. If you are centered in that sector, you don't need a commercial outfit in a metropolitan city like Windhoek. You need to be close to the farmer. Your production grounds should be close to the source where you get your product. The cost of operations will definitely go off. You will get rid of those blue-collar jobs that will require high, hefty salaries. You will look at more your technical space where you can operate and you'll function properly. We see that in private institutions. Whenever they have poultry sector, they withdraw themselves. They establish themselves closer to the market. They have more room for expansion. Land becomes their number one asset. Then they cut their revenues. They are under their own law where they can have their own solar panels operating. They cut then on electrical cost. Electrical cost is a huge component towards production cost. Now you are reliant on city of Windhoek. You have a lot of expenses. Electricity in the city is very expensive. We can look at it in that way. Some of the SOEs cannot really afford to have big offices within the center of the country. What happens also is that most of the SOEs, for example, Transnamib, has lost significantly in terms of the marketing edge. Transnamib's unique selling position was supposed to be marketing. And when that happened, and marketing has to do a lot with trade, international trade, understanding trade policy, hunting your clientele, ensuring that they are happy, pleasing your customers. And the other one would have been forming strategic relationship with your key resources, the vehicle industry, car industry, fuel supply industry, gas distribution, and industries like the technical aspect of it, maintaining trains, exporting those skills to other countries, making sure that you play a leading role within the SADC region, not just in Namibia. And the other one was tapping more closer to your customer, the mineral, the commodity places where you collect your goods. If you tell your customer, come out to this place and then we'll help you 60, 100 kilometers from there, they don't see a need of cooperating with you. The other one would have been technological side, the fleet management that runs on the country. As a major SOE that is funded, do you know what is happening in terms of the trucks that are moving on the roads? Do you know where they are going to? Do you know where they are loading? Do you know how you can bring a disruption or bring a solution in that sense? And then we always speak about the technological bankruptcy or the technocratic bankruptcy. that we are not clued up with the right market intelligence to know. If you go to a state-owned enterprise and say, what is moving tomorrow from the port to Zambia, and these guys are paying this premium for this product, where can you come in and propose to make a better premium, approach them and win that client over? That is where we are.
Yeah.
And then we have SOEs that are competing with orphans. Orphans are supposed to be the ones that benefit from government fees.
Yeah.
So now you are having your hands into the piggy bank with an orphan. And you look at the orphan and this person just needs food to eat.
Yeah.
You have your executives that are getting the salaries that they're supposed to get. And so I think that is where we are.
Yeah. Well, Rodney, thank you very much for your time and your insight tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you and all the
Thanks
best.
for having me.
Thank you.
Good.
To our viewers, this is from the Evening Review team. Have a pleasant evening. See you again tomorrow. Same time, same place.